Podcasts on unctv.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
In the heart of downtown Raleigh sit two historic homes, the Mordecai House and the birthplace of President Andrew Johnson. Now, the Mordecai story is interesting enough, but when you combine political intrigue with the 17th president, then you have quite a story. Producer Jeff Klein decided to investigate.
Ever dream about getting even with your childhood enemies? Well, our 17th president did just that. And what a disaster it turned out to be. Andrew Johnson was born in North Carolina in 1808. And at Raleigh's Mordecai Historic Park, you can visit his birthplace and learn the story of this remarkable and complicated man. Johnson was born poor, orphaned, uneducated.
You did not go to school in those days unless your parents had money to send you.
And breaking an apprenticeship, wound up being on the run from the law.
And so he had to leave the state in order to work and not get arrested. Exactly right.
You'll see evidence of his improbable journey from learning to be a tailor to becoming president. And you'll learn he blamed those above him in society for his difficulties.
Filled with class rage, a smoldering man in many ways, had a lot of dark moods.
His whole career, he always had a chip on his shoulder about the wealthy aristocracy.
These people belittled him his entire life.
Now, to see how those rich Southern aristocrats lived prior to the Civil War, walk a few yards from Johnson's birthplace to the Mordecai Mansion. Unlike the Johnson House, which was moved here in 1975 from its original site about a mile away, the home to 5 generations of the Mordecai family occupies its original site as the center of what was a vast plantation.
It had almost 5,000 acres and employed over 120 slaves.
You'll see that the Mordecais lived like kings.
They had bells throughout this plantation to signal the slaves for different things, and that's our own.
And their fine possessions are all there on display.
In all, we have almost 8,000 objects on site.
In the years leading to the Civil War, George Washington Mordecai was the head of the family. A man of his stature would have had no reason to know Andrew Johnson. But the two men would meet later in Washington under vastly different circumstances. Now, Johnson had left for Tennessee in 1825, and his fortunes had dramatically improved.
Turned out to have a good head for business, a good eye for real estate, and dived into politics. He was elected to every position you could be elected to: alderman, mayor, state senator, congressman, senator, governor, then vice president.
As the only Southern senator to remain loyal to the Union, Johnson was Lincoln's choice for vice president in 1864. But he served under Lincoln for only 6 weeks until the president lay dead. And suddenly, Andrew Johnson, the poor native son of North Carolina, a man without formal education, was president of the United States. The war was over, but Johnson was soon warring with the congressional leadership.
Congress became so angry with Johnson because he kept vetoing all the laws they adopted to assist the freed slaves, to ensure that the Confederates would not return to power in the South.
He should have tried to work harder with Congress. He could have consulted. He doesn't have that in him.
But the president did find time to pursue a vendetta against his former adversaries. Johnson made a rule that ex-Confederates who were guilty of simply being rich, like George Mordecai, could only get their citizenship back by pleading to him personally to ask forgiveness.
The pardon process that he set up was controversial because it was very personal. And people had to come and essentially ask him. And for many months in 1865, most of his days were spent speaking with Southerners who were seeking pardons.
He thought he was breaking the back of the Southern aristocracy by making them come to Washington and ask him for a pardon. Or he was simply satisfying a deeply felt need to have these people humble themselves before him.
The Mordecais were among the oligarchs devastated by the war.
The plantation never recovered.
And the defeated George Mordecai quietly went to Washington to finally meet and beg pardon from Andrew Johnson. Of the memorabilia displayed in today's Mordecai mansion, one item is conspicuously absent. It's the pardon Mordecai received from the president. It's hidden away elsewhere, a painful reminder of a lost way of life. Now, Johnson may have gotten even with the Southern aristocrats, but Congress got even with him. They passed the Tenure of Office Act.
It was a setup, is what it was.
And Johnson became the first president to be impeached.
He was impeached because Congress was just fed up with him.
While he kept his office by one vote, the record has been less than kind.
He comes down to us in history as a cartoon character. I mean, basically as in the garbage heap of history.
Some say the South is still healing from a war whose victims included the Southern oligarchs and a president's reputation. And it is ironic that Andrew Johnson and George Mordecai are now forever next-door neighbors. But here, in this peaceful park, it seems perfectly proper. I'm Jeff Klein for North Carolina Weekend.
Tours of historic Mordecai Park in downtown Raleigh run Tuesday through Sunday. For more information, give them a call at 919-857-4364 or go online to raleighnc.gov and look under Arts and Parks.
Podcasts on unctv.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.